So I'd like to welcome up onto the stage now our next speaker, Mandy Finnegan, who is the Education Lead for Birmingham Virtual School. Please welcome Mandy onto the stage.
Thank you. Hopefully you will all know your education advisor for the virtual school, because each Birmingham school should have a named virtual school advisor. If you don't, then please come and speak to me or my colleague Claire, if you give a little wave. Claire, and we'll be able to sort that out for you. So today, we focused a lot in regards to learners with EAL needs. I want to focus more on the unaccompanied asylum seeker aspects, because they're actually children in care. So the virtual school is a statutory for children in care around the country. We're now, you might have known us previously as LACES, so that was looked after children's education services, looked after children. That name has now gone back to children in care. So we are BVS, Birmingham Virtual School. Is that me? Sorry. Is that okay? So we work in partnership with the young person themselves and the school and college, and very much so with the social workers. We monitor the attendance, progress and achievements of the young people, and we try and use our pupil premium plus money that we have and any of the other partnerships that we're working with to support our unaccompanied asylum seeking children. The head teacher for the Birmingham Virtual School is Andrew Wright. We are divided in 3 teams, so we are North and Central, East and South, and that's how the schools are divided up between us. So, unaccompanied asylum seeker children. The UK government accepts someone as a refugee if, as you've seen there, they've fled their own country for various reasons. And an asylum seeker, there is a slight difference. So an asylum seeker is someone who's applied to the Home Office for refugee status, and that can take quite a while for them to get that actual status. And an unaccompanied asylum seeking child is a young person under the age of 18 who basically arrives in the country without any relative or guardian in the UK. So here in Birmingham, I think at the last count we had about 165 unaccompanied asylum seeking children. Many of those are now care leavers, in addition to that, are care leavers. But with our children, they tend to be aged between 15 and 17 when they arrive in Birmingham. But I know I've got one young person who arrived when he was in year 5. He's now going to be moving into year 7. And we have got pupils in years 7 to 11 as well. So, has anyone got any idea what percentage of the UK population is actually made up of refugees? Any ideas? Because I think the media leads us to believe that it's quite a large 12%. So 12% was there. Any other offers on that? 22? We've got that. B is the actual answer. Yeah. So this figure was from last year, but it hasn't changed too much from that. The number of asylum seeking applications that we're seeing through the country are from these particular countries. Actually now I think Pakistan's moved down the list, and we've got Eritrea coming in at 3rd place. And in Birmingham in particular, we do have a lot of Eritrean young men mainly who come in. And that's another point, that the unaccompanied asylum seekers, the proportion is probably 95-96% males, and the young girls who actually come through are quite often have been trafficked into us, but the percentage is lower. Sudanese, that's still growing at the moment, and obviously Iran and Iraq. So the challenges for our unaccompanied asylum seeking children are obviously on top of everything that we've really discussed today in terms of young children with EAL needs and with, just being refugees in a foreign country. Our unaccompanied asylum seeking children have got all the difficulties that our other children in care would have. So we prioritise our unaccompanied asylum seeking children as we would any other child in care, so they would get the exact same support, which the challenges include, and these are some of the challenges that you'll find our British children in care have, but in addition to, the separation from one or both parents. Quite often the children will have parents who've been killed in conflict abroad, or quite often their mums have actually tried to protect them by sending them out of the country, and then they will have left not knowing where their parents are, if they're still alive. So there's all those added dementias. Fractured education due to lack of opportunities in the home country. Again, some of our children will have never been to school, and many others might have been to school until the age of 7 or 11, and then we've heard stories where they've said the Taliban have come in and basically taken the boys out of school, or they've literally had to hide from school in case they were taken away. But that's something to bear in mind, that when you do have these young people, our young people, coming into your schools, often some of them won't even know, what a lesson means, what a timetable is. So sometimes we have to take it right back to those basics, so that support is really important. Yeah, different styles of an emphasis on prior education, and that varies greatly from what country they've actually arrived from. Feeling alienated if they cannot see their culture and their language experiences reflected in the classroom. That's an interesting one, because we find that more so with the pre-16s. The post-16 young people that I work with, quite often in our PEP meetings, will complain to me that there are too many Eritreans in their classroom, there are too many Syrians in their classroom, and they actually want to speak British more and mix with more British people, so they're immersed in the language. But unfortunately, because of the limited ESOL provision around Birmingham, that the classes are smaller, and the ESOL provision means that they are placed in classes with their peers. And it's quite funny when you actually say, well, just agree that you'll speak English when you're in classroom. So they're complaining that nobody speaks English in the classroom, but then when you say that, they say, well, why are we going to do that? And you can see the reason why. It's not easy. So, and again, racism is something that they see a lot of and explain to us in their PEP meetings. So, typical needs of UASC is remembering that they are children first. Again, we come up with schools coming to us to say, you've told us this young person is 15 or 16. They're clearly not. There are a number of reasons that you might think that. And if you were to absolutely disagree with the social worker's age assessment, then that would be something that you would need to put in writing. But otherwise, it's quite a challenge to actually do age assessments. So what we do at the virtual school is, if the social worker tells us that a young person is 13, 16 or 17, that's what we have to work with until an age assessment tells us differently. Not all unaccompanied asylum-seeking children will actually be subjected to an age assessment. And what you also need to keep in mind that I know people often say there's so many in their class, or so many of our young people actually have a date of birth of the 1st of the 1st. And that is quite often because in their cultural, for cultural reasons, quite often they don't celebrate birthdays, or they would have had no idea where they were when they were born. So when they do come into this country or any other country that they've come through along the way, they will have been given a date of birth. Health, both physical and emotional needs, are really important. As a child in care, they will be given support by our children in care nurses and doctors, and they'll have medicals and reviews. Education is one of their priorities, and to be honest, a lot of our children, that's the first thing that they mention when they asked about what support they want. They really just want to learn as much as they can and as fast as they can. Family and social relationships are often difficult initially, but again, it depends on the age that the young person comes into the country. If they are pre-16, they will most likely be put in with a foster carer. So again, they have the benefit of being immersed in that family, picking up on the English language and the English cultures during that time. But many of our other post-16s are placed in residential units or semi-supported accommodation. So again, and there's a lack of funding then for post-16s as well. And so they'll all have provision of social care, as long as they have been, if they come into Birmingham, I think it's something around 2 months before they're 17 and a half, they will actually be entitled to care as a care leaver. But should they come in a couple of weeks before they're 17 and a half, they would only remain with us until they are 18. How to support in school or college? Well, I can hear it. We work with a lot of schools, and we know that a lot of this is already in place, and we've heard a lot of this morning. So, creating a welcoming and inclusive environment, and that can be as simple as just having welcome in different languages, ensuring that there is a successful strategy in place that you've used, that you know that works to welcome these young people in. Emotional support for children affected by trauma and loss. So as a child in care, we will be able to support them with their social workers to access support, whether that be through CAMS, TESS. You've seen leaflets on the table, Birmingham Creative Art Therapies. Virtual School do a lot of work with them, and they've recently had funding for this EAL programme. And again, they do the therapy through music. A lot of our young people, especially when they first arrive, do not even like to talk about therapy. So we try and avoid that word. And as they, I suppose, become more comfortable in their environment, they'll be more open to getting that support. But we also work very closely with the Refugee Council, Refugee Support Network, Red Cross. Send support arrangements. This is a difficult one I was speaking about earlier. I don't know what your experience is in the school as yet, but certainly for post-16, which is another lead area of mine, I found that a lot of colleges are unable to assess additional learning needs of our EAL students until they're at least at entry level 2. So they need to get from pre-entry to entry level 2 to be assessed to see if they've got a learning need. It's just not going to happen. So that is something that we are working with and trying to support each other with, but it is really, really difficult, which is very upsetting to see some of our children who are coming in at 16. We've got some great colleges who offer ESOL. Unfortunately, 11 to 15 hours can be classed as full-time. And you might see a young person be on pre-entry for 2 years. They'll do another third year, but it's how functional are their skills when they're actually leaving college and to go into the workplace. So our termly PEP meetings, I'm sure you all know about those. So they're our personal education plan meetings, which are statutory, and they should be arranged between the designated teacher of every school for any children in care, including our unaccompanied asylum seekers. So they'll be arranged with the designated teacher and the social worker. The virtual school advisor for your school should at least attend one of those PEP meetings per academic year. They will attend more if there is a high-profile case and there's a lot of need. And so I certainly see you ask as high need, so I will try and attend as many of those as we can. Yeah, achieving good practice. Again, things that you've probably got in place already. We've been working with Separated Child, a charity based in London, who have supplied us in Birmingham with rucksacks that include toiletries, hoodies, tracksuit bottoms, the essential things that a young person might need as they arrive in Birmingham, because often they come with just the clothes that they're wearing. And what we're we've got a group of young asylum-seeking children, and we're working with them to see what else needs to go into that welcome pack. And we will be putting some of the FlashAcademy welcome packs that I believe are around the corner there into those packs, just to help, so that, because although our asylum-seeking children should be placed in school within 20 days of arrival, it doesn't often work out that way. So at least this will give them something to start with. Peer mentoring in school is really has been proven to work really, really well with our young people. Again, they like to be immersed in the British culture and with the British language. And what they will say is that if they feel embarrassed, more embarrassed in front of their speakers of their own language to try and speak English, rather than they are happy speaking English to an English peer, because the expectation isn't as much on them. That's the feedback we've got. So tips to support our new arrivals. Yeah, important to meet the social worker and the foster carer. I'm sure. Yeah, just the basic things we've been talking really about today, but you'll have these to go with you. I think it's important, to understand the pressures that the young people will be experiencing. Sometimes they'll arrive in Birmingham, and as any other child in care, placements can break down, so they'll have an upheaval of another move. They'll be trying to come to grips with whatever's gone on in their homeland. When we see the news, it's awful to us, but then they'll see that there's bombs gone off and they'll be worrying about, have any friends or family been caught up in that? So it's about remembering all those traumas. And what we've also noticed is that quite often a young person might start off at school and have a really good 12 months or 9 months, but then once they become more comfortable, the trauma that they've experienced in the past might start coming out in in behaviours that hadn't previously been noticed. So again, that's just ensuring that you're liaising with your virtual school and your social worker so that we can work together to support the young people in whatever way we need to. Okay. So yeah, some references for you to look through there. NALDIC, really, really useful, and the Refugee Council. The Refugee Support Network came to Birmingham last year after running a very successful initiative in London, where they actually offer one-to-one mentoring, education mentoring for unaccompanied asylum seekers. So they're matched to an education mentor who will meet them once a week for 6 months. So if you have any young people who would be interested in that, speak to your virtual school advisor and we can get that in place, get a referral set up. Schools of Sanctuary. So Birmingham is a city of sanctuary, and within the city of sanctuary there are a number of schools that are now a school of sanctuary. This list could have been added to since then, but you'll see that Erdington Academy is up there, St Joseph's, and I was saying earlier actually that there are many more schools who are doing really, really good work that need to be added to this list, and it's just about getting in touch with the City of Sanctuary via their website. But so if you are struggling with unaccompanied asylum seekers, EAL in any way, these schools can be contacted to offer support and share good practice. Thank you. Have I got any questions?